What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another TAETRO Talks. We're a little bit earlier this Thursday. It's no longer a late night talk show for me. It's a morning talk show. Today, we're excited to bring on Dave Lindenbank from Bitwig, product specialist. He is going to walk us through some features of Bitwig. We're going to talk about the DAW. I know a lot of people, especially those of you that watch my channel, you guys know that I'm primarily an Ableton user, and a lot of you experiment with different kind of DAWs, Ableton Logic, maybe even Bitwig. But I feel like this is going to be a really fun stream to get to know this DAW because I'm not familiar with it, but if there's one other DAW that has tempted me away from my usual habits, it is probably Bitwig. Dave, welcome to the stream. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for changing your time slot just for me over here in Berlin.
Just for you. Yeah, so Dave's over in Berlin. I'm over here in LA. This is an international show, so evening show for you. It still is like an evening talk show for you.
Oh, yeah. You might hear the 5-year-old yelling in the background, protesting bedtime.
That would be ideal. That would actually be ideal. One of the reasons I say that Bitwig has sort of been tempting me over to the dark side, like two major features. One, the aesthetic. It's a beautiful looking DAW. And then two, the MPE functionality, because it seems like a lot of companies say like Roly, I use a lot of Roly controllers, the Sensel, also MPE compatible, the MIDI polyphonic expression, for those of you who don't know. Ableton is just behind the game on that, and it seems like many of these companies, these hardware companies, are using Bitwig as a MPE solution, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. We talk to them a lot. I mean, just as a general perspective, speaking about the DAW, you think of the DAW, it's not living by itself. There are controllers, there are plugins, there are the system and the OS and its interface, which gets more unique now that touch is here and everything else, multi-touch screens and that sort of thing. So in a sense, we try to be like the best traffic cop possible. We try to speak everyone's language and get things moving in the right direction. So our MPE support is, I think, we speak it fluently. We do his best.
And that must be a challenge, like keeping up with all these features and like what features do you include? Like in MPE, it seems like this, extra thing. And I think maybe a lot of other software companies see it as an extra thing. For you guys, like having that type of feature seems important to be fluent, like you said, in all these different languages.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, plugins is its own challenge, right? I mean, everyone's making their own thing to a kind of vague spec, and some people are more conforming than others, and every DAW is different. So that can feel like the Wild West a little bit. But no, I mean, our job is just to support everything as best we can and do it in a robust way, whether you're in the studio or on the stage. So totally, there's a lot of concerns, and we try to address them as much as possible. We've done a lot with MPE, just like we've done a lot with CV as well. Like we do have a very native integration with that. So, things we can look at and talk about as we go on. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the orientation. We're in the middle. We just got to make sure everyone stays friendly.
I like that. I like that perspective. And I know chat, we jumped right into talking, and I didn't say hello to people in the chat. I think they're going to be very offended, Dave, that I did not acknowledge them. But really quick, Brandon Rico, hello, nice to see you guys. Check out Brandon Rico's channel. He's got lots of cool stuff with the Sensel morph, and I think he just posted some videos with the Lumi, very cool channel. But hey, what's up? I think he's a Bitwig user as well, so that's good to have him here. Josiah, what is going on? Scott Vincent is here. Philip Gomes, the Mini Rocker is what is going on? Alex, Rico, hello everybody. Welcome to the stream. Right now, I'm trying to monitor both streams, but computer was giving me trouble on that front. And also, Dave, for some reason your Skype screen keeps getting larger and smaller, and I keep fixing it in OBS as we go. So people have that to entertain them as we go along. But thank you all for tuning in. It's going to be a fun stream. As long as you can hear Dave, and eventually we're going to switch over to you actually looking at Bitwig. That's all that really matters, but it seems like it's going to be a fun stream. Bueno, what's up? I don't know if I said hello to you, but thank you for being here. Hopefully you guys can learn some stuff. Giveaway, Dave. We have a giveaway today.
Yes.
3 licenses. So somebody actually asked, is Bitwig free? Bitwig is not free, but what we do have is today we have 3 8-track, so the 8-track version of Bitwig, which is, kind of a lighter version of the full DAW, but you can get a lot done with it. And I think a lot of the features we're going to talk about today are actually going to be included in that 8-track license. But 3 license giveaway today. Thomas of 343 Labs, who you guys have probably seen before. Clap it up for Thomas in the chat. He is going to go ahead and drop links so that you guys can enter. If you're RSVP'd for this event already, you're already entered, but you can enter again with the chat link. So make sure you're watching over on 343 Labs channel if you don't see a link over in the TAETRO chat. I am watching the TAETRO chat and the 343 chat, but that's how it goes. Oh, look, link just posted. Enter the giveaway. If you like what you see, you can start using Bitwig pretty much today. What's up, Gabu? Nice to see you. Max Wild in the chat as well. Does Max have the smoothest Theory Thursday streams or what? Jeez.
It is a handsome stream, I will say that much.
Yeah, he's got that going for him, but that's pretty much it. All right. Dave, before we jump into the DAW too much, I said that you're a product specialist. Is that the correct term for your role?
At a relatively small company, you could say almost anything, and it might be accurate.
All right.
Technically,
how would you describe?
Well, my business card, I think, says Senior Specification Manager. So
very fancy.
Isn't it? Which basically just ends up meaning exactly what you were referring to earlier. How do you decide what features are the ones to pursue next? How do you prioritize, like, let's say a parody feature, something that a lot of DAWs do versus trying to do something different and innovative, and how do you balance your resources and your time? So partly I try to lead those conversations, but it is a relatively small team in just this. I started as the manual writer. I mean, I wasn't inside the company at first. I was an external guy living in New York. So before version 1 came out, which was 2014, I was in touch with them and ended up writing the manual. I've been updating it over the years, and then there was good timing, and they knew me, and there was plenty of work to do. So now my family's here in Berlin, and we're a full-time part of the team for the last 2.5 years.
That's amazing. That's an amazing trajectory. I'm curious on how maybe what's the elevator pitch version of how you go from writing the manual to like full on working on the DAW.
Well, I will say this, because I was on the other side of this for a long time, being like an aspirational music technology person. How do you break into anything? How do you do this? I hear it. I hear you. What I experienced in the end, and I think is true for a lot of people, is, how do you get this job? This is, same for the manual writing gig or something else. They contacted someone they trusted, said, who do we talk to about this? And they suggested to talk to me, and then we hit it off. So it's so many times it ends up just being, if someone you trust recommends another person, that just puts you, 300 feet closer to the gig. So the time I was in New York, I feel I almost charted it out once just to make sense of it. It was like, where did these jobs come from? And more than 90% of the time, it was because someone else who knew you and knew the other person recommended you. And that's how it works.
That is a common thread through all these interviews, interviewing a few different people from different parts of the industry, artist side, studio side, now like DAW side, tech side. And it all comes down to that. It's these connections, these micro connections that you make that get you to the next person, that gets you to the next person. So it's almost like just jumping for it. Like, I'm sure if you just reached out to just Bitwig at large at that time, you might not have gotten a response, but making those very organic connections all the way up to the company. I think that's important, especially folks in the chat. I see lots of people asking some stuff. Capel, the giveaway today, 3 8-track Bitwig licenses, but a lot of folks in the chat just starting off and have different ideas about the music industry. And I think that unique story that you just told, going from manual writer to full on working on the DAW, is pretty inspiring, because there's lots of jobs in the music industry besides just being an artist. And I'm sure you make music yourself too, so I'm sure it's like it's a whole if it's full circle for you. We all do things. We're all musicians, but we all kind of do things other than just make music.
Oh yeah, I mean, and to a certain point, it's you look at people who play in world famous symphony orchestras. They're still teaching private lessons. It's not I had this too. That's why I'm being a little bit avuncular and saying, hey guys, here's the way to think about it. But, just get over that part of, oh, it's only about music. I shouldn't be doing these other things. There's always going to be other things. It's always
totally
a bit of a yin and a yang. So,
especially when you're just starting out,
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if a world-class violin player is teaching lessons while being a world-class violin player, it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to do some other stuff too. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, admittedly, they have less cool merch than you probably do, but
You never know. Should we get into actually using some Bitwig and jumping right into it? Show us some features?
Yeah, we can do that.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. They can see you. Oh, no, now they can see me.
There you go.
There we go.
Are they gazing upon this now?
They're gazing upon us. We can see Bitwig in all of its colors. Here's the thing about Bitwig. You first look at it, you've got that palette in the top left, and that just totally reminds me of like Photoshop or something, like I'm about to start painting. But take us through like the anatomy for those of us who've never used Bitwig before, like maybe just a brief overview of what we're actually looking at. It looks pretty straightforward. But
everything in Bitwig, the entire thing is panel-based in terms of editing, because you end up in different situations where you need different tools. Just at the very top level, this collection of panels, at the bottom right, we can see it's called Arrange, and it probably looks familiar to a lot of people. It looks like an empty, linear arranger view. If I switch over to Mix, this probably looks familiar to a good number of people as well.
Ah, yes.
Because, I mean, like any modern DAW, we're oriented around the clip as kind of the atomic level for arrangement. You want to work in clips. So yes, we've got the the triggerable clip launcher here, as well as the arranger view. Before we go deeper there, just for 1 second, I'll say, well, if I had something selected, yes, I could see it down below, whether it's audio or MIDI. There is also a third view, though, because sometimes you might want to make the part that you're editing the focus of most of it. So now I've got like a big edit for my audio up here, additional automation lanes, or even devices that are processing it down below. And then if you do happen to be on 2 screens or even 3 screens, we have some setups that have been made with multiple windows. So, I have 2 displays. One will always be the arranger, one will always be the mixer, and even if I click on one side, both follow. So you can kind of like keep things going. So they've been set up in different ways. And I should just mention that we do fully support multi-touch when the OS supports it, which means, sorry, Apple people like myself, but Microsoft fully supports it, Linux fully supports it. The whole interface, you can put as many fingers on the screen as you want, and we've made ways of editing with it.
We've got an instructor, Abe Duque, who I'm sure you know. So folks who don't know, Abe Duque is an instructor at 343 Labs. He's got his show on Fridays, which is Bitwig Basics. So tune in tomorrow. He's going over all kinds of cool stuff in Bitwig. But he is like a Bitwig power user in that he's got like a Microsoft Surface tablet. And when he showed me that, he could put multiple fingers on the screen, different touch points, and it worked so well. So it doesn't seem like you guys just added in touch support to have touch support. It seems like it's fully integrated and fully, you guys thought it out. Like, it works so well, and that's so unique about this, because it's not just like using an iPad app, really. It's like a little bit deeper than that.
Oh yeah, I mean, how do I draw notes? Simple things like that. It's like, well, you don't want to click here, click there. Oh, I click my finger and hold, and now there's this ring menu of actions, and now if I drag this way, I'm drawing. If I drag that way, I'm selecting, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, maybe Thomas. Yeah, we can't show it. So I was going to say, Thomas, if you want a real quick drop in the chat, Abe's 5, I forget what it is, 5 reasons to use Bitwig or something like that. And he shows off the touch functionality, but that is really cool. You touch the screen, there's this brand new ring that pops up when you're touching and holding, and you can select different functions from there. I don't know. I was just blown away by that integration and how well thought out it was.
Well, that's that whole traffic cop thing. It's like, what can we use? Okay, let's support it. Yeah, I think When we first did that was right when Microsoft started making the Surfaces in the first place. So
Yeah.
it was just a good moment to kind of drop everything and develop.
And is there amount of thinking, like with you and your team, about, are you guys thinking about what can we do that other DAWs can't, or what can we do slightly better than other DAWs are doing? Like, are you looking for features that kind of aren't existing elsewhere? Or are you just looking to kind of be the best DAW that you can be, regardless of what other people are doing?
Well, I'd say two things. One, it's always a balance, because are there some common functions in other DAWs that we don't have or we only have partial support for? Sure. Would I like to see those things fleshed out as soon as possible? Sure. But then it does come at the expense of saying, oh, well, we have this other idea that takes something we're already doing further. Or, like with version 3, when the grid came along, and I'll just click here for a moment and say, oh, having a modular environment with modules and patch cords, it's literally part of the DAW. Yes, that took time and focus and energy. So it's always a balance between what can be completely original and different, and anytime we do a parody feature, something where we're trying to do what other DAWs are already doing, then yeah, I mean, we're trying to do it our way and make it integrate better and maybe give you better or different feedback as you see these step sequencers moving, whatever
Absolutely.
it is. But yeah, that's the eternal struggle, like how much time you put on each one.
Nice. And since we talked about panels, we talked about the anatomy, the basic anatomy of it, but now that we're in this modular panel, this looks scary to me. I'm sure it looks scary to some folks in the chat as well. Do you want to just break it down for us? Like, what's going on here? What am I looking at?
Okay, what you are looking at, this is an environment we call the grid, which is our modular sound design environment. What that means is if I'm over here, back in the normal place, if I'm just in a device editor or whatever, and I say I would like to add something, if I select an instrument, then you're going to see some familiar type things. Oh, here's an electronic hi-hat emulation with some different controls and things. Or maybe here's our phase 4, like a phase modulation and phase distortion synthesizer. There's always like fixed hardware instruments that exist that have their own kind of unique interfaces sometimes, whatever it is. But then sometimes what you want to do is actually pick the components that go into it. So what the grid does, it has two flavors. This one is called polygrid, and then there's an effects grid if you wanted to make like an audio effect processor. And maybe as we go, we could just create an audio effect from scratch a little bit
Totally.
later.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, the idea is you've got all these modules to choose from. So you're not just like working with a fixed architecture synth. You're actually building the synth and then setting all the parameters and deciding how things go. So yeah, I mean, you can see some things that are kind of familiar here probably, like, oh, that looks like an event sequencer. This looks like a step sequencer. This looks like a sine oscillator. One interesting thing about Bitwig, and it's here in the grid, if I select this sine oscillator and I look at it and I can't remember what everything does, I can always just go ahead and click show help. And then you get an interactive view with all of the information. So this is a live actual copy of that oscillator. Like, it is still functional if I'm running sound.
Oh, you can still click on that.
You can still click on it. You will still hear the result and the output and everything else. Like, maybe it's more clear. I know we're not hearing anything yet, but if I went ahead and pulled up the step sequencer, you're going to see it's still animating because all of those levels are still going. Everything's working. So it's just a way of seeing all the information, but instead of going to a PDF, it's in the literal copy. Sometimes it's nice just to, I mean, not to go into the GTD mentality, but sometimes it's nice just to open this and not see anything else for a minute and just focus on one thing at a time.
So I wonder, like, are you, or do you think users are using it that way, where it's like, okay, I have this big mess of my modular thing happening. I want to just hone in. I don't necessarily need a tutorial. I just want to focus on this thing for this moment.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I've heard from people who do pursue it the other way. So if I went ahead and just pulled up one of these phase 4 patches, I mean, it's not exclusive to modules anymore. Now it's been added to all of the devices as well. So this one's a little bit overwhelming. I mean, the entire section and everything else. But if I just click over here, now I'm just looking at these particular functions of this operator.
Yeah.
Then yeah, this is definitely a decent way to just ignore the rest of the world and I'm just working on the filter tunings and different modes for a minute and seeing what works, you know.
That's so amazing to have that baked in. It's like a baked in manual, and that's funny for you because you come from your original position being the manual writer. So I'm sure this is near and dear to your heart.
Well, someone had to write the text. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh, nice. That's a massive undertaking, it would seem, because it seems like I can click on anything and get that sort of tutorial style.
Oh, sure. I mean, even if I clicked over here on, we are definitely putting the cart before the horse. We'll cover a few of these things as we go. But even if I click on one of these little modulators, which is just an envelope that I can route anywhere, if I were to select that, yes, they've all got this help information to tell you everything that's there.
And then operate it right from within there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Very fancy.
Yeah.
Let's go in whatever direction you want to go, because I know I keep getting excited about different things and diverting us, but where should we go next?
Let's just do basics for a second, because the one thing I did want to show was this part is pretty familiar. It looks like, you know, the clip launcher. If I want them bigger so I can actually see the content, I have this clip launcher here above the mix with my little mini representations. Those are new. I forget they're there sometimes, seeing the little EQ curve,
nice.
The gain reduction on the compressor or whatever. But what's interesting, and actually what's drawn a few people to us even at the beginning, is the linear timeline and the clip launcher. They don't need to be completely independent, because it's nice when you can have them next to each other and then work in different kinds of ways. So it's one thing to say, oh, of course, I could clearly drag this audio clip back and forth between the two things. But picture this workflow for a minute. Maybe I'm composing songs or just trying to put some ideas together, and I'm using the clip launcher. I think a lot of people do for composition. I'm just trying to work in a sectional kind of way.
Absolutely.
Oh, here's an idea for a verse. Here's an idea for a drop. If I were to go ahead and grab the scene level, which would trigger all of those clips, and drag it over into the arrange view, what's interesting is, what you'll see is these things are looping already. If I were to click over here on this little Vox loop, this vocal loop, it's a 4-bar loop. This hi-hat thing was a 2-bar loop. It looks like the biggest thing was the synth line was a 16-bar loop. So just dragging back and forth, it actually did the math and said, oh, your biggest one was 16 bars.
So it adapts everything else to that 16 bars.
To match that, because you're just working and going back and forth, and that's kind of the way your brain might work on it. So the DAW just happens to work on it that way too.
I wonder if you did the math of like how many times I've had to do the math myself. Well, not do the math, but like duplicate. Like if I do that for 5 seconds, like in every project across 1,000 projects.
Yeah.
In my lifetime of working on things, that's 5,000 seconds. You just saved me.
That's half a new season of Tiger King or whatever that we can
exactly.
Get you. Yeah. Exactly.
That's very cool. I love being able to see those side by side. That's not something I've seen before. It just seems like there is a philosophy of customization. It's not quite customization. It's more like lots of options. So you want to see clips and you want to see a timeline at the same time? Great. You want to go over to this modular grid? You want to flip this panel, work directly on a sample? Great. Like it seems like there's lots of, you're thinking about lots of different kinds of workflows.
Well, I mean, I would say one of the core principles from the beginning of us working on this software, now we just released version 3.2 a little while ago. So we've been at it for a while. But one of the core ideas has always been modularity. Now, to some people, that just means the patch chords we were seeing a minute ago in the modules. But if you think about it, it really just means if I understand this thing and can apply it at different levels in different ways, then I kind of know a bigger workflow. Like I know a way to work with this to begin with. because we're doing dragging back and forth, how about this? I'm going to make a new session. It will default to blank. So now I've got a couple tabs open. Because maybe what I really like is this one track, and I would like to drag it over to that other session and drop it in. Or maybe it was that I just happened to really like one clip from that session and I can bring it back and forth. It's just these ideas that in a lot of different ways, you should be able to do what would save you the steps, you know? Let me give you a slightly sideways example for a minute.
Sure.
If you look at the very bottom of the screen, I'm not sure if you can see it very well, there's all this text telling you available actions for whatever you're hovering over.
Oh, nice. Yeah, okay.
Should I zoom that in a little bit so it's easier to see?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Who knows what'll happen on the stream, but
Why not?
maybe it'll work.
Let's increase. Whole interface can be scaled, so I'll just blow it up a little bit for now, so it's a little bit
Oh, that's
bigger.
great.
So if I were to grab, this is a note clip, right? Happens to be triggering hi-hats. Let's just solo in here, and I mean, it's about what you would expect. Oh, very low. Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
That's all it is. If I were to drag this, yes, I could drag it into the session. Yes, I could drag it onto a different track. But what if, even on the same track, see in that footer, if I hold shift, it's going to bounce. I haven't let go of the mouse yet. I'm still doing a drag action. So now I'm going to hold shift, and we're going to watch for a minute while it actually prints the audio. And when I let go, I've just printed audio of this and put it on exactly the same track. Now, how does that even make sense?
So it's a MIDI track and an audio track. It doesn't make sense, Dave.
So the
Explain
little
it to me.
icon here is saying, hey, it's half audio, it's half notes. Because now it's what we would call a hybrid track. So give me 2 seconds. Let's take a look over here. Okay. Oh, keep clicking too many times. So if I trigger the note clip, and I'll bring the audio down in a minute so you can, well, maybe you can still hear me while it's playing. You see, here's this note LED saying, oh, notes are going into the drum machine, like a rack with all these samples loaded. And then the audio is coming out of the drum machine into the delay device. And yeah, the notes are going also, because we pass those along. You can use those for other things. That doesn't matter right now, but notes are getting to the instrument. Instrument is creating audio. Audio is being processed, right? So if now I trigger the audio clip instead, audio is simply passing through the instrument and still getting processed by the delay device, because I might change this into something completely different and feedbacky and weird. So at least now you should be able to hear a difference from what it was a minute ago. And now if I go back to triggering the notes, if you get where I'm going with this, now I'm free to work on either level. I can keep doing the sound processing down the chain, and I don't have to like go rebounce my clips or anything.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off printing to audio.
Yeah, I mean, it's all digital, right? So
yeah,
it's going to get there. We're just trying to find these ways to simplify what you're doing, because yeah, there's some things you can only do by editing audio, like cutting and reversing and doing other kinds of effects. Well, maybe it's nice to just be able to do both in one place. So
absolutely.
Just one of these modularity examples, right? Yeah,
totally. We had a question about the proper modular section from the chat. Where is it? TWD Industries asked, how does this compare to similar digital modular environments like Reactor, Pure Data, and then one other one I've never heard of, Jez Buzz. That sounds made up. That sounds like Star Wars. But yeah, how does the modular environment in Bitwig sort of compare to some of the other? What are people going to find familiar? What are people going to find different? I think Reactor is probably the most popular.
Okay, well, the concepts are vaguely the same. I mean, you've got modules, you've got sound sources, or sources, I should say. In most cases, well, in most other environments is what I mean. The same rules apply. You could connect one output to multiple places, but each input can only have one chord, for example. I mean, that's just kind of standard rules. The way we do the math is a little bit different. anything can be connected anywhere. So there is no difference between, I believe, if you're asking about Reactor, I think they call it the event level and the audio level. So there are kind of two different kinds of connections, and they work at different rates. I believe the audio level is working at like your sample rate, and then the event level is like some hertz count, like 200 hertz, 400 hertz, something like that.
Interesting.
Ours, everything is connectable anywhere inside of the grid, and the actual sample rate inside of the grid is way different. It's 4 times your audio interface's sample rate, which is to say, if you're working at 48, then signals inside of the grid are actually 48 times 2 to 92 to 192. So all of the signals inside of the grid are operating at 192 and in stereo. So it's basically 8 times what you would expect from a normal sample rate. Each patch cord itself is stereo, including all the control signals. We could look at some fun examples of that later.
Wow.
Aside from that, I would say being the DAW has certain advantages. We can be sample accurate straight out of the box. And for that reason, instead of like a typical model where you have event sequencers and you're waiting for a trigger that says, oh, next step, next step, next step, we spend a lot of time working on phase as a concept. So you could set up something that says, oh, next step, next step, next step, but it's just converting to a phase signal, which is just going from 0 to almost 1, and that's where we start getting towards sample accuracy and other things. So why don't I just do it right now?
Sure.
If I were to go ahead and... I promise we'll jump back and play with something like sampler in a minute, but this is a default polygrid patch. If I play some notes and don't solo the other track, which I had soloed, okay, there we go. You know what? How about we just do 5 minutes in the grid? Because there's a few basics anyway.
Sure.
There's kind of 3 things here. One is the library of modules, because otherwise you can't build anything. There's, I think, 160 something modules at the current count.
So it's all the toys. So you're saying I don't need to order a bunch of the physical modules and go down that path. I can just be in Bitwig and have virtual toys. That's what you're saying.
That is a fair assessment. I might not have said it that way, but there's toys here. I mean, and in the end, honestly, I view modules more as these are kind of grunts. I mean, none of them are individually trying to steal the show, because you need to have enough things here to create something interesting. So you need like a pretty rounded library to go from. One thing I would say is, hey, look, if this is scary, I understand. There's a whole bunch of presets that are in here already that are using the grid. So for people who aren't trying to get inside and program everything, there's no reason to start at that level.
Yeah. And then you can start reverse engineering things too.
Well, reverse engineering, or even just starting in the place of saying, oh, I have no idea what I just clicked on. This is apparently my good friend Leonard. Now there's a preset loaded. I don't even have to go to that level. There's always going to be 8 top level controls. So even if I never go inside the grid window, there's going to be a lot of material that I can play with to start with. Because I think for most people, the tangible level is I loaded something and now I just want to start by tweaking it. And the fact that, you get a little bit more comfortable, you go inside and then you say, oh, I found this thing called cutoff, or this thing called a resonance, which are all labeled down at the bottom of the window again in that bottom corner. Okay, well now I kind of know what I'm looking at, and I can start going from there. I wouldn't recommend to anybody that, oh, I'm going to start with modular and I'm just going to build everything from scratch immediately. That's not how we learn anything. I mean, that's not how we do sound design necessarily. We start by imitating sounds and doing stuff like that.
Yep.
So, yeah. Well, now I sidetracked myself.
We don't have to stay too far. I feel like we've covered a fair amount of the grid, and I think we answered that question pretty well. So TWD, I hope that answered that question.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the sampler, though? Because I think that's interesting.
I think it's a good place to start and just get a little bit of a sense of like how Bitwig works overall. We can look at a couple concepts within there. I'm going to load a blank sampler. I'm just going to start from scratch. And if I were to grab, I think I had an old session folder here. Yeah, okay. So if I were just to grab some random girl vocals.
This is your top secret sample library?
Oh, if it was, it should probably be mixed better, right? Oh, we have, again, exclusively soloed a different track.
Starting with a female vocal sample, this is my bread and butter. I like this direction we're going.
Well, good. So I've got a sample here. Maybe I'll just keep this piece of it for a minute. I'm just dragging these flags around, which are associated with time values, and maybe it makes sense already without explaining what every little thing is. Why can't they? Okay, so we've got this here. Now I've got a loop option. So right now I'm just going straight through. If I were to turn on looping, I could either drag things around or just right click and say, how about we loop until here. You'll notice the sample start point disappeared because it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, just from the idea that the interface should present to you what's useful and try to get out of the way otherwise. So let's... If I like that window and I just want it bigger, I can always have this. In any of these expanded windows, you can do it.
I love that.
Pop-up.
That's great.
Now, you'll notice nothing is key tracking currently because key tracking was off when I dragged in the sample of this length. I could just click and turn it on.
Nice.
And you can kind of already see the playheads moving around and get a sense of what it's showing you already. Whether they're going forwards or
all the different samples, like all
relationship.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent of the app sampler on iOS. It very much kind of shows stuff like that.
Well, one little visual thing just to talk about for 2 seconds. This, as you can see here, is loop crossfade. Now, if I turn that on, maybe you're imagining how it's going to visualize that a certain way. Because I'm guessing if you're like me, when you see what it actually visualizes, it's not what you would have guessed. At least that was the case for me. So if I increase the crossfade,
Okay, I love that. That gradient visualization makes so much sense.
Well, I wouldn't have guessed that that's what it's going to look like. But then you look at it and it's like, oh wait, this is telling me the truth. It starts fading out here as it starts fading back in here, because if you're fading in, you're crossing the loop boundaries. There's no way around that.
Yeah. It's a much more accurate representation of what's happening than just lines.
Well, hopefully. But yeah, so I've played around here some. I could turn on the filter. I could adjust the envelope. I mean, those things probably make sense. Yes, you can change speed on a sample. Fair enough. Now, one thing that we snuck in here a little bit, if I were to, well, I could even go here for a minute. There are different modes to the sampler. So, well, if this is what we're focusing on, we can just look here for a minute. Repitch mode is what you would expect. You heard it when I changed the speed. It's like old
sounds like a tape.
It's like a tape machine. Yeah, exactly. Pitch and speed are tied together. But perhaps I would like a textures granular style mode. So which when I change the speed now, it's a bit of a different thing. I do have a grain size control, whether I want it to be bigger Or interestingly, a motion control to think about how many it's actually fading through while it's going. Because one thing that gets interesting, and we'll look at it a little bit more in a minute, is I can actually freeze the playhead so that it is literally sitting in one place.
Like a single grain?
A single grain, but the motion part lets me say, well, make it a little bit more than a single grain so it doesn't go into like full-on robot mode. So
that's very. So that leads me to ask about MIDI mapping. I know this is a divergence off the sampler, but I want to map that to a knob. I want to play a note and spin that knob on a controller. Possible?
I would probably right-click, say map to controller or key, turn something on the controller in front of me.
Wow.
Not such a divergence.
Hey, you didn't tell me you were Grimes's ghost producer, my friend.
I do everything except for name the kids.
That was really cool, though. I love that you are able to just right-click on the thing that you want to map, and you don't have to go into some other sub-menu or something. That's super convenient.
Well, okay. We'll revisit a slightly different idea on that in a second.
Okay.
You're making me excited to show you the next thing that you'll probably like, because now I know what you like, and that's good.
Perfect.
I'm going to unfreeze for a second, go back to our normal kind of looping mode. Now, in addition, in the middle there is a cycles mode. Cycles is the best thing to call it. It's kind of a pseudo wavetable. The idea being, you've dropped in audio. Each individual cycle of the waveform, if we can kind of establish where those are, we could use those like their wavetables and crossfade between them. Now that's not how traditional wavetable synthesis works. I know. You can don't angrily type in the chat just yet. It's a different idea. It's the idea that I've got audio on my computer. If I drag it in, there's probably worlds to explore I haven't gotten to yet. So now this is going to sound funny to begin with, because remember, I never set a root note for this. I just dragged it straight in, and it's assuming C, and if it's doing what I told you it's doing, and you zoom in, you suddenly see these lines, and that's where the wavetables are. Well, that's not quite lining up correctly. So if I were to just right-click and say, oh, I already set a loop region, maybe just automatically detect the root key for me, please?
How convenient.
So now this is going, and if I were to play around for a second, yes, there's still speed. And for the second control, yes, there's filter, but formant is a different, interesting way to think about things. And again, we could go to this frozen playhead place. Now, what you said was assign it to a MIDI knob. I like that. There's another concept we have in Bitwig, which is modulators. If you were to look at this instrument, I see an AHDSR. Okay, that's probably an envelope generator. I don't see any LFOs. I don't see anything else that I can use. Because the philosophy is, you might need 0 LFOs right now. You might need 12 on your next instrument, or on your next effect, or on your VST plugin. You can do that too. Here's the idea. This little icon, which kind of looks like a port with a cable sticking out of it, this is the modulator panel. So perhaps what I would like is, let's just start with an LFO. Okay? I want to use an LFO. It has parameters of its own for changing the rate and everything else. Fine, we can ignore those for a moment. Okay, how do I route this LFO and where? I'm going to click that little routing button, and suddenly a bunch of knobs are going to change and have a slight tint about them. Because now that I'm in mapping mode, all I have to do is drag and say how much.
Nice.
Now, since I'm on an instrument,
You love to see it.
Maybe I want this to be polyphonic. So there's a copy per note, and each one will retrigger in being a slightly different place. And stuff.
Oh boy.
And I can still grab the control I'm mapped to and move that freely. A little fast, maybe. So, yes.
Wow. I love it. That's so intense, because thinking about how I would recreate doing something like that in Ableton, it's just not that easy. And it seems like that's a whole nother level that I hadn't, like a whole nother level, which gets you to a whole nother place in terms of like sampling and sound design that you can get to so much easier. Like it sounds, you took a simple sample and made a really advanced sounding sound out of it, but it didn't take you an hour. It took you the 5 minutes or less to just throw a couple of those devices on.
Well, and you know, to be fair, these concepts aren't super complicated. It's just kind of like, where am I playing? Can I modulate that? And once the answer becomes, oh, yes, you can, then it doesn't necessarily go, oh, I need to do something totally different. I need granular because no one else is, you know, it's like, oh, I can use the basic tools and express them in different ways.
Absolutely. Chat is loving it as well. I'll just dip into chat for one moment. Manesh Kumar says, that's cool, Heart. That's great. Capel asks, is the giveaway going to be announced on both channels? Yes, same stream, both channels. Make sure you are entered. I'm not sure if Thomas has closed it yet. He might have. He'll let us know in the chat. If Thomas posts a link right now so you can enter for a final chance, do that. If it's already closed, it's already closed, and we're getting ready to announce winners, so be ready. Delirium, great to see you even though you're late. Welcome. You'll be able to watch this. These streams go up after we're done with them. Appreciate everybody for sticking around. Philip Gomes says multiple projects at the same time sounds great. Yeah, totally. People really loved the mapping and the sampling sound design. People are super into that stuff. So thanks, guys. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this look at Bitwig. Make sure you are entered to win an 8-track license in case you haven't had it yet. Also, make sure you check out 343labs.com. We've got courses starting all the time. Courses on Ableton, Logic, all kinds of music production stuff, songwriting, music theory, the whole nine. 343labs.com. Enroll for a course. We got summer immersives coming up. Lots of different things starting in the coming weeks with a lot of the instructors you see here on 343 TV. And if you do love Bitwig, like we're showing off today, tune in tomorrow for another free live stream with Abe Duque. He's got his show every Friday called Bitwig Basics, every Friday at 1 p.m. EST. So it's like an hour before the stream started. But yep, 343labs.com. Check out the courses. Dave, I'm having fun in Bitwig. And TWD asks a question, which is something we just started off with. Mm-hmm. Does Bitwig support MPE? And of course.
Yes. Well, we can do this quickly. If we take a look for a second, I mean, I don't have an MPE keyboard hooked up, but let's say I took the Expressions modulator, which is again one of these modulators that I could put on a VST distortion if you wanted. You could put these things wherever you want. I do here, yes, there's a help view. I do have a pressure output, which is going to do channel aftertouch unless I'm in MPE land, in which case you are going to suddenly have basically the depth through, which is that? Is that the Y? The Y of each note, the hardness that you're playing with it. Timbre is something you can record as an expression on your notes or audio. So in the end, that's like your Z plane, the Z plane most of the time. So you can just bring all of these parameters in. MPE tends to do release velocity more than other things. So just one little device here to show that. But you know, we could even tie it in and do a non-MPE idea for 2 seconds based on what we just did. So, okay, we've got a little thing. It's LFOing around its current position. Maybe I want it to be more expressive. I do have velocity on my tiny little keyboard. So maybe what I do is take the LFO, which has an amount or an output level. If I were to bring that down to very little for a moment, and then say, well, but maybe based on the velocity, I'm now modulating the modulator, maybe based on how hard I play the key, that should affect how big the LFO is. So, play some
Yes, I like
softly,
it.
get a little motion if I hit one harder in the middle there. So just another way to make things that are, I mean,
Wow.
the concept is super simple, velocity sensitivity. But once you apply it, with polyphony or on top of this instrument, then it just kind of takes on a life of its own.
Very cool. As we sort of come towards the end of our stream, I think a few people, like we went really deep on a couple concepts.
Yeah.
And I know we are getting ready. So that giveaway, guys, the link just got posted 4 minutes ago. I wouldn't be surprised if it's closed already. So hopefully you entered. Thomas is going to be sending me winners shortly. But since we are giving away 3 of those 8-track licenses, do you want to maybe just give me elevator pitch? Oh, yes, I just got some giveaway winners in my inbox. Before we announce those, maybe just talk me through, okay, I'm a beginner. I just got that 8-track license.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably not going to go deep with that the grid just yet. I might not do all this crazy mapping with the LFO and whatnot. Like, can you just bring me through a typical workflow? Like in a very, we don't have to go deep and make a whole track or anything, but just break it down for me. I open the DAW and here's how I start.
Well, 2 things. Even if you're not one of the fortunate winners, you can always download Bitwig and it will work in demo mode with no limitations whatsoever, other than you can't save or bounce. So you could download it right now, play with everything, including the grid, like all of the features, whether it's an 8-track or not. If you're in 8-track, you can click a little button and say, let me switch over to demo for a minute and try everything. I just can't hit save while I'm here.
It's an amazing thing, guys. So check that out. You can try everything about this DAW for free. So even if you're hesitant or you're worried about dropping any kind of money on something you're not sure about, just give it a try. And if you take to it, then you have a better idea whether or not you're going to actually purchase something.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say, it never hurts to just have some kind of demo song to begin with. I mean, if you open for the first time, we've got some templates here for people who just kind of want to hit some sounds or make sure their controller's working or whatever. But, there are a number of demo songs down here. It's just going to go online. I think you can see it, but I can't. It's just downloading whatever resources are required. Even in 8-track mode, all of the basic part of the library is available. So you can just download that and start working. You're going to have a sampler. You're going to have some of these modulators. You're going to have the EQs and compressors and everything else. So whatever level you're working at, like the necessities are there. I can just start hitting record, playing in notes, getting sound out, and going from there. It doesn't have to turn into I'm going to bounce now or do the advanced technique thing. Music production is kind of funny. It's I was talking to a friend about this the other day. It's this place where it's not like math, where, I'm going to learn some basics and then I'm going to learn some more advanced things on top of it and some more advanced things on top of it. With music production or sound design or whatever, you have to start by knowing a little bit of the whole process. Like you can't hit bounce unless you understand the output chain and a little bit of what's going on. So it's really just, it's easier to just start by starting and not thinking about it so much. And just, even one thing I'll say here, if you're new over here and that's what you're talking about, if I just go ahead and click plus on one of these launcher cells, we do have presets that are also clips. And if this is a blank track, then okay, it's going to load your instruments and everything else. But it's not just like instrument presets that you're loading. It could be pieces of drum grooves or little instrumental things on top or whatever. There's just a whole bunch of different levels of what can be called in and what's contained and just having access to it immediately. So yeah.
And for some of you folks who are feeling, slightly intimidated, learning a new software is always a challenge. I mean, this would be a challenge even for me to dive in and learn a new DAW, but especially with something like Bitwig that's modular, and I'm not talking about the grid, I'm talking about all the modular panels within the DAW. Just take it one module at a time and then see how it reacts with one other module, and how do I drag clips from here to here, or how do I work with that sampler? Let's make the sampler bigger. Focus on single modules at a time, and that's one way to really break it down, because when you look at the screen, it's filled with stuff, but when you realize that full screen is actually filled with 1, 2, 3, 4-ish little individual panels that you can dive into on their own. It's a good way to break it down and learn. Dave, should we announce the winners, do you think?
Well, let's give them one more moment of suspense. Just to piggyback on something you said that I think is totally valid. Two good things, especially if you're feeling a little scared or intimidated by any of this. Number one, a lot of DAWs are highly software-based now. I talk to any producer I know, they've got a lot more than one DAW on their computer. So you don't have to, people ask, oh, why should I switch to this? And the answer is, you shouldn't switch. You should open it up, try it out, see if it does something good for you. And if it does, maybe it's a part of your workflow. People buy different software, including DAWs, for what they do, not for what they don't do. So everybody does something, and it's good and interesting, and that's great. The second thing that I would say is just if you know every part of a software, which is sometimes the fear, like, oh, I don't know this part or that part, I need to understand all of it. If you know every part of the software, you're not a user anymore. You are a product specialist. So there's no point in that. It's just find what's useful to you, and it's equally true in Photoshop or Logic or Bitwig. There's going to be stuff here that you're never going to use, and that's fine, because there might be some things you do use. That's it.
You don't have to use everything. That's great advice.
Well, the limitations are what lead to making music, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Speaking of making music, let's get some people making music with Bitwig. How was that segue?
That was pretty.
Is that like C+ level
not max
segue?
Smooth, but it was pretty smooth.
Yeah. Okay, folks, we are about to announce the 343 TV giveaway today. 3 lucky participants in the streams are going to win an 8-track license of Bitwig, so you can start making music with Bitwig right away. Make sure you're tuning in every day on 343 TV, 1 p.m. EST. Tomorrow we'll have a whole show with Bitwig, so if you're one of the winners, you can learn from that. And even if you're not one of the winners, you can go try Bitwig for free and follow along with Abe's stream tomorrow. We're also a school, guys, 343.com. Make sure 343labs.com, I should say. Go check out our website with all of our courses if you do want to learn from the bottom up. But for now, the giveaway winners are Troy Brainard, Philip Gomes, and Thierry Beauvais Gentile. I hope I did not butcher any of those names, even though I'm sure I did. So again, Troy Brainard, Philip Gomes, and Thierry. I had another chance at this too. I could have really knocked it out of the park. Thierry Beauvais Gentile. 3 winners today of those Bitwig licenses. Thomas will be reaching out. Everybody clap it up for Thomas in the chat. Clap it up for our winners as well. Super stoked that people are going to get a chance to get their hands on Bitwig. That's really, really great. So look out for your email. Make sure you check the email that you entered the contest with, and make sure you check your junk mail. Thomas will reach out within a week or less. Thomas is usually able to contact you guys, because we're doing a stream and a giveaway every day, so it's a lot for good old Thomas. Dave, we're coming to an end here. I gotta ask you one question that my subscribers will not forgive if I don't ask. What MIDI controller are you using?
Right now I've just got a little Novation Launch Key Mini plugged in.
Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. Come on, we got to know the details.
You know what? I'm just going to have to show you, and you're going to have to figure it out, because...
Oh, the Mark 2. Still good. I love your stickers. I love those colorful stickers.
Well, that's the fun part. Ready? I'm in the sampler. You've got these colors, And once I've got knobs working, these macro
Whoa.
controls are always using the same colors. So
Burying the lead here, Dave.
I sometimes forget there's a camera because I'm not normally asked to appear physically, but yeah.
That's amazing. That's
so the
cool.
whole idea in terms of the mapping stuff is you've always got these little labels, not just over here, but on the device. So it really just turns into muscle memory in a while because you've got this rainbow order of, red, orange, yellow, green.
Yeah.
And it's always the same knobs or faders, whatever the configuration of your controller is. So it just ends up being a nice way to control things. If I were to load some of those presets, they're assigned to useful parameters wherever they are. Yeah.
That's great. And here's another question that you probably won't be able to answer for me, or maybe you will. So the launch key, a keyboard designed for Ableton, even though you're using it with Bitwig, it's still usable other places. A Kai Fire, a controller designed for FL Studio. What am I missing here? I think that's pretty much so DAW specific controllers. We got Machina. When can we expect the Bitwig MIDI controller?
Well, I mean, look, as your wall testifies to, there are plenty of controllers in the world.
It's true.
One good thing about Bitwig is that we have an open API for control stuff. So this list here of manufacturers and things underneath, including our friend Sensel over there and Roger Lin, this is all just what's built in. People have also made things outside of the company that are available for download, and then you can just work with whatever controller out of the box, et cetera, et cetera. So one thing is we're the traffic cop. We're trying to support as many things as possible. So hopefully that's enough, and you forgot that I didn't answer your question, that you'll be busy for a while just using what you've got already.
That's a good answer.
If 2020 has taught us anything, who knows what the future holds.
Nice. I think that is a great way to end our stream today. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Congrats to all the giveaway winners. This was a really fun stream, and you really showed me some features that I did not expect and some really cool stuff. And also to know that I can jump off the stream right now and start using Bitwig for free. Try it out. No risk. It's just so good to know. Thank you so much for talking to me, Dave.
My pleasure. Be well, everybody. Stay safe.
Yeah, thanks so much. And make sure you tune in every day on 343 TV. We are streaming every day on all the live streaming platforms at 1 p.m. EST. Check out 343labs.com because we are a school. So all the presenters that you see on the daily streams are 343 Labs instructors. So you can learn with them in a small classroom environment, virtual. We have a classroom in New York, and we're going to have a classroom in Berlin very soon, but we have lots of classes online, so you can take classes no matter where you are, be in a small classroom environment, one-on-one with expert instructors. 343labs.com. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been TAETRO on TAETRO Talks.